Atmanandi, or the state of self-satisfaction. This self-satisfaction is not like the satisfaction of the inactive fool. The inactive fool is in the state of foolish ignorance, whereas the self-satisfied Atmanandi is transcendental to the material state of existence. This stage of perfection is attained as soon as one is fixed in irrevocable devotional service. Devotional service is not inactivity, but the unalloyed activity of the soul. Soul's activity becomes adulterated in contact with matter, and as such, the diseased activities are expressed in the form of lust, desire, hankering, inactivity, foolishness, and sleep. The effect of devotional service becomes manifest by complete elimination of these effects of passion and ignorance. The devotee is fixed at once in the mode of goodness, and he makes further progress to rise to the position of Vasudev, or the state of unmixed sattva, or Shuddha sattva. Only in the Shuddha sattva state can one always see Krishna eye to eye by dint of pure affection for the Lord. A devotee is always in the mode of unalloyed goodness. Therefore, he harms no one. But the non-devotee, however educated he may be, is always harmful. A devotee is never foolish nor passionate. The harmful, foolish, and passionate cannot be devotees of the Lord. However, they may advertise themselves as devotees by outward dress. A devotee is always qualified with all the good qualities of God. Quantitatively, such qualifications may be different, but quantitatively, both the Lord, I'm sorry, quantitatively, such qualifications may be different. We're not the same in quantity, but qualitatively, both the Lord and his devotee are one and the same. Om Narottamananda Sagiranjana Shalakaya Chakshusan Milyatam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. So good evening. So nice to be with you, both of you. I really appreciate it.
There as well. Bhakti Kurt's also joining us.
Okay, wonderful. Hi Krishna Bhakti Kurt. Nice to have you on. So, Srila Prabhupada, he was a living example of what we're reading here. And we're so fortunate to receive these teachings from a person that was a living an example. To serve Krishna, we actually need to attain a spiritual body. On the material body, it's only for people who want to lord it over the material nature. It's not our eternal position to lord it over the material nature. It's actually when we desire to lord it over or try to enjoy the material nature selfishly, that's when our conditioning begins. So, again, the result of that is that we become imprisoned in a particular type of body, depending on our desires and depending upon our actions. There's 8,400,000 different types of bodies. So there's 400,000 human bodies, not just in this planet, but throughout the universe, higher and lower. And then there's 3 million types of four-legged bodies, like animals, horses, cows. Then there's, trying to remember all of them, there's a million different types of plants. There's 4 million different types of aquatic bodies, water creatures. And then there's insects. I think there's 1 million different types of insects. The total of, comes up to 8,400,000 species. So, if we want to enjoy in the material world, Krishna, he does not interfere with that, with our desires, with our, independence to choose whether to love and serve Krishna and all living beings, or to try to enjoy separately from him. So the body, it's interesting, the body from the Vedic perspective, from the Krishna conscious perspective, is actually an imprisonment. But in the Western worldview, the Western paradigm, the body is considered to be, everything. It's considered to be the vehicle for enjoyment, and everybody just identifies with their body. I don't know if you've seen this film. It's quite old now, but my Guru Maharaj, he was delivering a lecture in the Suva Civic Center. This was like in the late 1970s, and so he asked people. He had Kesha Bharti Maharaj was bringing a microphone around to everybody in the audience, and he asked, "Who are you?" So one middle-aged lady, she said, "I'm a teacher." Another person said, "I'm still trying to figure out who I am." Another person said, "I have no description." Hey, Deborah, Hare Krishna. I have no description of who I am. And my Guru Maharaj said, "Well, I see you, you're sitting there." And he said, "No, I have no description." And, when they went around and asked everybody who they were, everybody described their bodies, or they had no description at all. And, these were all, intelligent people, professional people, educated people. So the point I want to make is that the material body is actually an imprisonment from the Krishna conscious perspective. The body is not a vehicle for enjoyment. Prabhupada used to, bring this point up. If you think that this body is meant for enjoyment and this material world is meant for enjoyment, you're either lying or you're crazy. I always thought it was so funny. Prabhupada would put people right on the spot, So the first point that I'm making is that if we want to serve Krishna, we need to attain our spiritual body. And we should recognize that the material body is for people who want to lord it over the material nature. So, when we're locked into this body, we have to struggle to control and to enjoy it for a certain period of, time, which we call, our lifetime or a life. And some people, like I'm sure you've all heard this many times, that you only go around once in life, so you have to grab for all the gusto you can. I think that was a beer commercial, actually, when I was growing up. That was something like that. And I remember my Guru Maharaj and I were laughing, and he was saying, "Yeah, Narottama, you got to go for all the gusto you can, because the devotees only go around once in life, because after this life, you go back home, back to Godhead." We were just laughing. He was making a joke out of it. But for most people, they think this life is everything. And on account of that, they are always, miserable. Because we have so many desires, and we have so many, callings and different duties and different purposes for our lives. And then, to think that this life is everything to accomplish that, it's very frustrating, actually. Just from we're talking about being happy and blissful in life. And, if we just even, theoretically accept, okay, that I'm not this body. I'm the spirit soul within the body. So the body may go through different transformations, and good and bad. Um, but that doesn't affect me in the same way as thinking I am the body. So just having that little bit of knowledge can, immediately free us from so much depression and anxiety. I remember once one of the devotees in Dallas, Mother Vrinda, she was doing book distribution, and at the Mockingbird train depot, and there was a young boy, like maybe 13, 14 years old, sitting in a wheelchair. He couldn't walk. So she came up to him, she started talking to him about Krishna consciousness, and she just explained to him that he's not his body and showed him the pictures and everything. And the boy just broke down and started crying. And he said, no one ever told me this before. And it's such a relief to me that to even hear that I'm not this body, and that this misery is temporary that I'm experiencing, and I actually have a beautiful, spiritual body. And he took whatever money he had. I think he had like $40 in his pocket. He gave everything to her, and took like 4 or 5 books from her. And also, like, in terms of what's happening, recently in the last week or so, all this conflict. I mean, we've seen it. Like, I was just a kid, but early on, there was all this similar type of rioting against Vietnam, against the government, and there was, I remember when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. I lived in an Italian neighborhood near Chicago. It was a Chicago suburb. And then next to us was an African American neighborhood called Maywood. Like, Chicago, especially those days, was like an urban society of different cultures. Like, there was the Italian area, there was the African American area, there was the Chinese area. I mean, you still see that. People generally, they gravitate towards their own communities. So you do see that, like, even in Dallas, you see that. So, but I remember when he was assassinated, then all this rioting broke out, and I mean, without getting into the details, it required the, military to set up sandbag barrier walls between the communities, because people were attacking one another and killing one another, um, because of this bodily concept of life. But in fact, if we understand that we're not these bodies, and that everybody is a spirit soul, imprisoned in their body, then immediately, there's this relationship that, we are all spiritual beings. We all have an eternal relationship, of family and love. And, that's very deep. That's very, very deep. So, first point, basically, that to serve Krishna, we need a spiritual body. And the material body is it's an imprisonment, and it's really meant for people who want to overlord the material nature. So, the fact that we have a material body is indicative. It indicates that we, haven't really learned how to work. We haven't really learned how to express ourselves. Otherwise, there'd be no necessity for the eternal soul to be imprisoned within a temporary body. So, once our lifetime's over, then when we're taken out of this body, and then we're reevaluated, and then we get another body and we start it all over again. And that's what's happening. We transmigrate through 8,400,000 different species of life again and again and again, until we can reawaken our original pure loving consciousness. So, if we have the desire to enjoy the material world and try to control the material energy and try to control one another, then we get a body. But once we desire to serve Krishna, then we don't need a material body anymore. It's that simple. Then we go back home, back to Godhead, we go back to Krishna. So the easy way that Lord Chaitanya recommended is that we engage ourselves in service, in devotional service. So there's 9 different types of devotional service. The first one begins with hearing, shravanam, and then kirtanam, speaking, chanting. Discussing Krishna consciousness is also kirtan, not just a musical, performance of mantra meditation. So hearing, chanting, remembering, and then there's more. There's Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, serving his lotus feet. That means like personally rendering service to Krishna. And onward, there's 9 different processes. And we can learn and practice all of these in relationship to one another as devotees. And then also there is the process of deity worship called archana, which facilitates it even more so. So, getting out of the misery of material existence doesn't have to wait until this body dies, because our consciousness is not limited, or it's not actually under the control of the inferior nature, unless we place ourselves under that control, unless we entangle ourselves, entrap ourselves and within material life. So again, this process of engaging in service, that's what Lord Chaitanya recommended. It's very natural and it's very satisfying devotional service. And the process Lord Chaitanya recommended, it's called Yukta Vairagya. So what does that means? Basically that we use the material nature for Krishna. We just take everything that we have, all of our abilities, all of our resources, everything that we come in contact with, and we utilize it in Krishna's service. So that's very natural renunciation. Artificially, if we try to stop our activities, that's very difficult, because it's like, how can you stop activities? How can we stop acting and thinking and willing? It really is just going against the whole flow of things. So, but if we, continue our activities and instead offer that to Krishna, when we engage our thoughts, our words, our, our activities, our house, our family, our cars, our living rooms, our kitchens, like when we start to see everything, as not just a tool, but an opportunity to exchange love with Krishna, then it becomes very natural. Everything becomes very beautiful. Everything becomes very fresh and new and interesting. So engaging our bodies in Krishna's service and dedicating the different things that we do with the purpose of pleasing Krishna naturally makes us very satisfied. The example that's given, it's a really interesting example, is that you cut a tree down with an axe handle made from the same tree. So to cut down this illusion of trying to enjoy this body, if we use the body to serve Krishna, then everything gets transformed. It's like reversing the whole situation. So then, then no one, like, we're no longer entangled when we do that. So, we're controlling this body. Like, we can close and open our hands and our eyes and think and feel. But if we control the body for Krishna's service, instead of trying to control it for, satisfying our senses, then we're using our body in Krishna's service. Now, I know that sounds like kind of harsh, but you see, when we utilize the body and the senses in Krishna's service, it's not that our senses are not satisfied, but along with the satisfaction of the senses, we experience that eternal relationship of love and devotion with the Supreme Lord. It's like, in other words, we don't just take something out of the refrigerator and just gobble it up. We prepare something nice and then we offer it to Krishna with love. And then we honor that food as Krishna's prasadam. So the whole activity now, we're still enjoying, but we are the secondary enjoyer. You see, we're enjoying along with Krishna. And that's really where our deepest satisfaction comes from, and also with one another. So we're controlling this body. If we control it for Krishna's service, then we actually become situated in our natural state of happiness. So this natural happiness, it's from different activities, right? The natural happiness that comes from those different activities. Some of them may have, okay, so this is a very nice point. Like, some things materially give us a lot of satisfaction. You could say, well, I really enjoy going, studying, or I really enjoy being with my family, or I really enjoy, going to festivals, or I really enjoy good food. So it's not that there's no enjoyment in the material world, but that enjoyment, you see, no longer becomes an obstacle to us. It no longer entangles us in a kind of like selfish, petty, selfish, hard-hearted mentality. See, our hearts become soft when we utilize everything for Krishna's service, and we try to inspire and encourage one another, in that loving service also. So, it's very, very natural. One of the names of Krishna is he's called Hrishikesh. Hrishikesh means the controller of the senses. So the body, it consists of senses, and the Supreme Lord is the controller of the senses. There's a verse that goes, Hrishikena, Hrishikesha, Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. It's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the translation means, by engaging our senses in the service of the Lord of the senses, that is called bhakti. That's what devotion is. When we utilize our senses in the service of the master of the senses. That's devotion. We might say, well, I could have devotion for my dog or my grandmother, or, my friends. Why Krishna? Well, a simple example that's given is, it's quite entertaining, this example of all of us, just like, for example, if I was to say, okay, all of you are the nicest people in the world, and thank you so much for coming and sharing with me and spending this time this evening with me. I really do appreciate that. So now, I think I brought this up the other day, but anyway, this just to summarize it again, the idea is that, say we're trying to always be, you know, good people naturally, right? We try to do our job well. We try to help others. We try to be respectful, you know. But if for some unknown reason to us, the supervisor comes in at the end of the month and says, "I'm so sorry, I can't pay you," then, you know, remember, we're all the nicest people in the world. You know, what will we say? Well, you know, you could say, well, you know, um, that's okay. I love you, and I love this job, and that's all right. You don't have to pay me. I understand. But the question then is, how long can we continue on doing that, right? So the for Krishna, see, so the conclusion of this is, even though we want to be loving by nature, it is within us naturally to want to love and take care of others. Um, but we are dependent by nature. So on our own, we are very limited in how we can express that love. And generally, the love is, as we were reading earlier, it's contaminated by selfishness. See, service is our natural, it's our constitutional nature, to serve and to help others. So that service mood, it becomes purified the more selfless we become. That's what love is. Love means selfless service, when we do things for one another without considering anything in return, without any expectations, without any, you know, um, payment. So, you know, otherwise it's like a business deal. Okay, I'll serve you, you know, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. You know, just like like say, if you go to a restaurant, right? So you're really hungry, you go into the restaurant, you know, and the waitress is there and she's really happy to see you. You know, you're really happy to see her because you're really hungry, and she's gonna give you the menu, and she's really happy to see you because you're gonna give her a big tip. But that's not really love. That's a business deal. You know, we might just engage in a polite way with one another, but, you know, there's no real love there. I mean, there might be some, it just depends, you know, but the point I'm making is that service becomes purified the more selfless it is. That's what it means to be a pure devotee. So, um, in our example that I'm saying we are dependent by nature. So, you know, at a certain point, we have to demand payment, because otherwise we can't sustain ourselves. But as we're reading, you know, as we've read earlier, Krishna, he's not like that. Krishna is fully independent. He's Swarat. He is self-satisfied. He's self-maintained. Everything is his energy. And so Krishna doesn't need anything from anyone to be satisfied. He doesn't need a paycheck to sustain himself. So Krishna is actually the only person that can selflessly love someone else. Now, when we reawaken, or when we revitalize our original relationship of love with Krishna, then all of our desires become fulfilled. Actually, the person providing the paycheck is not the one who's sustaining us. There's a lot more that's necessary for sustaining us than a weekly paycheck, right? Like the air and the sun, and, you know, the ability to think and see and all of these things. So Krishna is the real provider. So for a devotee, understanding that Krishna is in control of everything, this is another reason the devotee feels very blissful and happy, because they understand Krishna is my well-wisher, Krishna is so loving, and Krishna is controlling everything. So Krishna will never do anything to me that would ever harm me. Now, we might do things to ourselves or to one another that is harmful, and then blame Krishna for that. But Krishna is not responsible, because he allows us to have this minute degree of independence. Anyway, that's another topic, but you get the idea. So Krishna, you see, he's the one who is the origin of selflessness, of selfless love, and he's the origin of everything. So he is the source of infinite beauty, of infinite, you know, intelligence, infinite power, infinite wealth, infinite strength. So when we actually come in contact with Krishna, we feel completely satisfied. Like it's described that when Srimati Radharani, Krishna's greatest devotee, when she comes before Krishna, her love for Krishna is so selfless and she's so refined in her ability to serve Krishna. It's known that she has 64, she's the masteress of 64 transcendental arts, like dancing and cooking and dressing and singing. So, um, and she does that exclusively, those things exclusively for Krishna's satisfaction. So it's described that when Srimati Radharani, when she comes before Krishna, um, Krishna becomes so satisfied by her love that even though his beauty and his love and his happiness is unlimited, his beauty, happiness, and love begins to grow. It increases. And when Radharani sees that Krishna's beauty and love and happiness is increasing, her beauty and her happiness and her love increases. And as they associate with one another, they're all, both of their beauty and strength, happiness and love increases unlimitedly. And anybody who experiences that experiences the same satisfaction as Radha and Krishna are having. They're just being in the association of Radha and Krishna. So it's not that the devotee, is meant to live like a morbid life of self-denial, and in as a uh, uh, like some kind of like a forlorn monk, who's rejected society. It's devotional service is nothing like that. Devotional service means to take everything and use it in a loving way for Krishna's satisfaction and to help others. So Hrishikesha Hrishikena Sevaram Bhakti Uchate. So now in other forms of yoga, we're talking about bhakti yoga, right? But there's many forms of yoga. Yoga is a science of self-realization. Like we see in the yoga studios, there's hatha yoga, which is basically gymnastics. Hatha yoga is part of a larger system of yoga called Ashtanga yoga, which includes not only bodily postures and exercises, but also breathing techniques and also meditation. Um, there's Jnana yoga, to be able to distinguish between reality and illusion. And there's many different forms of yoga. There's discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, but all of them, they have the one purpose, which is to understand and realize God and our own spiritual identity separate from the body. Now, what's unique about Bhakti Yoga is that Bhakti Yoga is the yoga of how to relate to God. Just like, say, when you meet somebody new, then you get to know them. But after once you get to know them well, right? Then you have a relationship with them. You enjoy music together, you eat together, you go to, out to events together. You see, so Bhakti Yoga, it's the yoga of relationships, of a relationship with the Supreme and with every other, with everyone. It's really the yoga of relationships, ultimately with the Supreme. So therefore, Bhakti Yoga it's considered to be the highest rung of the yoga ladder. It's considered to be the perfection of the yoga system, and it also is gives us the greatest satisfaction. Just simply speaking, according to Bhagavad Gita, our spirit soul is comprised of an energy which emanates from God, which is non-different from God. It's in Sanskrit, it's referred to as Sat Chit Ananda. Like Krishna's body, his body is called Satchitananda Vigraha. His body is entirely made of spiritual energy. And we also have a spiritual body like that, but right now it's imprisoned within this material body. Now, Sat means eternal, Chit means conscious, Ananda means that it is full of pleasure and happiness. So this Satchitananda energy, which our soul is comprised of, is each aspect of the soul, like eternity. So Krishna, he has three primary manifestations. There's a verse that goes, Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajganamadvayam brahmeti paramameti bhagavaniti shabdate. So that means that the absolute truth is realized in three phases of understanding by the knowers of the absolute truth, and all of them are identical. Such phases of the absolute truth are expressed as Brahman or Brahmeti or Paramatma realization, Brahman realization, and Bhagavan realization. So in the different systems of yoga, there is concentration upon different aspects of the Lord's manifestations. So there is the Brahman realization that everything is God's energy, which is an impersonal realization. There is Paramatma realization that God is present within all beings, within everything, and within the heart of every living being, and guiding and helping us to fulfill our desires. And then there's Bhagavan realization, which is that God exists within the spiritual world as a person, who we all ultimately have an eternal relationship with. So the point I want to make is that in the Brahman realization, for example, we experience our Sat, the Sat feature of our spiritual energy. We understand and can experience eternality. In the mystic yoga system, like where generally they're focused on gaining mystic powers and performing different types of miracles, types of material, manipulating material energy in a way that a normal person cannot, like walking on water, right? Or like reviving someone from a disease, curing them of leprosy or cancer or whatever. So in that mystic yoga system, there is a focus on the Paramatma realization, which is the consciousness. It's the Chit feature of our spiritual identity. Okay, so you have Sat and Chit. But now Bhakti Yoga, it focuses on the Ananda aspect, which is, Ananda in Sanskrit means ever increasing, unending pleasure. So only when we come to that Bhagavan realization, or only until we enter into our original relationship with Krishna based on love and service. And it's not just a one-way relationship that, like people may think, oh God, when they hear it, like, oh, I'm a servant of God. Oh, that's horrible. Why would I ever want to be a servant? But it's not a one-way street. In other words, love implies service. Love is not just an emotion. So this is a point I think that people, they would get distressed or confused by. But love means to be active, just like in bhakti yoga. So bhakti means devotion, but it also includes service, devotional service. It's meant to be active. Not just I say, okay, I love you, but I don't do anything for you, or I don't do anything with you, or I don't think about you. There's no love in that. Love means service. It means a relationship of affection based on service. So the devotees who serve Krishna, Krishna reciprocates with them. In fact, Krishna, he takes more pleasure in serving the devotees than receiving service himself. So it's not that, Krishna, he just takes all this service like some kind of overlord, and all of us are just these enslaved, penniless, you know, whatever you want to call us, you know, insignificant followers or something like that. In fact, the devotees become even greater than Krishna. He allows them to take a superior position to him, even. Um, anyway, that's another topic, but so in bhakti yoga, see, when we distinguish ourselves from Krishna, we are individuals eternally that have a relationship that's based on love and affection for one another. So in that, in a relationship, in a relationship, we get the opportunity to experience love and to exchange love, and that's where our complete spiritual satisfaction comes from. It's not just enough to think that I'm eternal. It's not just enough to understand that I'm conscious and that there's a higher consciousness controlling me. But when I come to the point of engaging in devotional activity, then I achieve the full gamut, the full expression of my internal identity, which is eternity, consciousness, and loving service, and satisfaction from that service. Um, so that's why you see in other forms of yoga they go through these drastic types of activities to control their senses. So Lord Chaitanya, he rejected that. He said it was the wrong type of renunciation, and he called it markata vairagya. Markata means monkey renunciation. So the reason it's called monkey renunciation is just like monkeys, they look very austere and renounced, right? They live naked in the forest with, no uh, uh, wealth or possessions, right? But actually, if you go beyond the externals of a monkey's life, you'll see that they're actually big enjoyers. They have many wives. They eat as much as they can. So just looking. The point I'm making is just looking austere. But within ourselves, having so many desires, that's not going to work. That's not going to be satisfying. So the devotional service means we want to desire to serve Krishna. And Krishna knows very clearly our desires. He's within our heart. Our relationship with Krishna is so intimate that it's just like our hand and the body, that we can feel every pain and pleasure and every action of our hands. So in the same way, we're part and parcel of Krishna. So Krishna feels everything, all of our desires and every attempt that we make at serving him. It's all immediately experienced by Krishna. So he knows everything about how we're trying to serve him. And, he becomes very pleased with that naturally. So bhakti is not just some like external process that you have to hold your breath or breathe a certain way or sit in a certain posture or something like that. But it's a very internal change of consciousness. Um, and it's, you know, because we're directly relating with Krishna, we're going deep into our very existence. And we cannot fool Krishna. So, even if you're not very advanced, you can just honestly say, I'm trying to get out of here and I need your mercy. I'm not very advanced. And we can be very sincere like that and try, our best to like systematically increase um our devotional lives and make gradual progress with satisfaction. Like, in other words, we can't give up something unless we have something better to do or have or eat. So it's all about, in getting the best of everything, offering that to Krishna because he's the origin of everything, and then sharing those things with one another out of love. Um, so there's a story I'm going to tell you. It's a really beautiful story. It's about Lord Chaitanya, and he each night he was having these wonderful kirtans inside the house of one of his devotees named Srivas Thakur. The place you can still go there, it's called Srivasanga. It's very close to our temple in Mayapur. And in fact, sometime we should all plan a trip together. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And we could go there and during a festival and see all these places and, participate in the wonderful, events that go on there. And so Srivas Thakur, he would only let very intimate, loving devotees to come into his house to be with Lord Chaitanya each night because he didn't want Lord Chaitanya's mood to be spoiled. He didn't want to, take away anything from Lord Chaitanya enjoying the kirtan and dancing and associating with the devotees. So people would come and Srivas Thakur sometimes would have to turn them away, and some people would even get angry with Srivas Thakur, but he didn't care because he was just thinking about the Lord's pleasure. Now, on one occasion, there was a brahmachari, which is a celibate student, in the devotional line or in the yoga system, and so he came and he begged Srivas Thakur if he'd heard so much about Lord Chaitanya, and he wanted to come into the kirtan and see Lord Chaitanya dancing. And Srivas Thakur had already had a similar situation occur with his own mother-in-law. And, so he was like very, very leery and afraid to upset Lord Chaitanya with another event similar to what took place between his mother-in-law and Lord Chaitanya. She snuck into one of the kirtans and hid under a big basket. But the point, like I was saying, is that her relationship with Lord Chaitanya wasn't developed very well. And so, Lord Chaitanya could sense her, I don't know what you want to call it, like her presence, and he wasn't experiencing the happiness that he normally experienced in the association of the devotees doing kirtan. So Srivas was afraid the same thing was going to happen with this brahmachari because he didn't know the brahmachari. But the brahmachari, he was telling him, I'm very, very strict. He was only drinking milk. And that, so to maintain his life, especially those days, like mendicants and brahmacharis and sannyasis, monks, they would go to the houses of, to the homes of householders and would beg their meals. And so the householder, husband and wife couples, one of their duties was to help maintain everybody, and by giving charity. And one of the ways they would do this is they would provide meals to, um, these wandering practitioners of yoga. So the traditionally, um, people would keep a number of cows at their home. They'd have like a small garden and some cows. So they would milk the cows, and these religious men, they referred to as sadhus in Sanskrit. These religious men, they would go to their homes right when they were milking the cows, and they would get this fresh milk, even like as soon as the cow had been milked. They don't even need to boil the milk. The milk was still warm, and the milk had all the essential vitamins and enzymes and everything they needed to be healthy, just by drinking milk. You know, those days the milk was fresh, and there was no need for them to pasteurize it or homogenize it. Or so the sadhus, you know, everybody knew this. So anyway, so they would go from home to home, and the families would give them, you know, meals to eat and stuff. I did that once. I went to Vrindavan in India on one of the big processions. It's called a parikram that goes around the whole area of Vrindavan. So one of my friends, he asked me to go, and it's called madhukari. Madhukari means like a bee is called madhu. Madhukari means like a bee goes from flower to flower and gets pollen. So in the same way, you can go from home to home and get things to eat. So we went in this one village in Vrindavan, and you know, they live in simple homes, and like the village, like you can just come out on the front porch and just yell, and like everybody in the village can hear you. So I came to one of the houses and I said, Mataji, Mataji, which means mother, mother, Madhukari, meaning would you please feed me? So this lady, Indian lady in Vrindavan, um, she just started laughing, you know, like, look at this American guy here at my front door. So she, from her front porch, she called out, and all the women in the village came out on their front porches, and everybody was laughing with me and everything, and talking about, hey, look at these guys here, you know. So then she went in the house and she got this fresh ground, um, the fresh ground wheat. They grind it by hand and make these flatbreads out of it called rotis, and they put the clarified butter on it, and then they gave me some vegetables and some pickle that they had made. Not like a dill pickle. In India, they make like mango pickles and lemon pickles and different types of pickles that are a little spicy and oily. And you can have a really nice meal with just one or two of those breads and some of the cooked vegetables and the pickle. And she kept feeding me, and everybody in the whole village was like laughing and talking about it. Such a sweet thing. So, you know, during the time of Lord Chaitanya, this was the culture. And so the the brahmachari, so Srivas Thakur thought, oh, this brahmachari, you know, he's not an ordinary person. And so he told him he could stay in near his house, like in the backyard, and peek through the window. So when Lord Chaitanya came that evening, and all the devotees came, they started chanting, you know, the Hare Krishna Kirtan, Hare Krishna, with the music instruments and dancing and everything. After some time, Lord Chaitanya stopped the kirtan, and he said, I'm not feeling any bliss tonight. What is this phenomenon? I'm not feeling any ecstasy. The love, the flow, it's not coming to this kirtan. He said, who or what is the cause of this? So, you know, Srivas Thakur, he already knew he was in trouble. I mean, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself. He's within the heart of all living beings. He knows everything. So, you know, this time Srivas like had already learned his lesson. So he fell at Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, and he said, I've made a great offense. I let one brahmachari in the house to look at the kirtan. And he was a brahmachari yogi, and he just wanted to watch your kirtan for a couple minutes and see you. And then, so Lord Chaitanya said, okay, bring him here to me. So the brahmachari came, um, you know, he was carrying a stick and a water pot, and he had matted hair, and he was wearing bark clothing. These yogis, sometimes they would do that. They have a way of making like an outfit out of bark, certain types of bark. It's almost like cloth. Um, and he looked really very austere. So Lord Chaitanya asked him, what do you do? And so the yogi says, I do Astanga yoga, like the eightfold yoga system, you know, with the hatha yoga, with the breathing and everything. And then I meditate in the forest, and I only eat roots and fruits from the forest and leaves that fall from the trees. So, so Lord Chaitanya asked him, he said, so you're very austere. He said, then he asked him, what's your purpose of being here in the city of Navadvip? This is a bustling city with so many householders and businesses. This is not the place for such a renounced person. He said, I can tell why you're here. You're here because you're not really renounced within your heart, internally. He said, you actually want to enjoy. He said, you were out there in the forest, you were feeling lonely out there in the country, and you thought if you came here, then being an austere yogi, all these householders, they would invite you to their homes and feed you all kinds of nice prasadam. And so you came here, and you came here to get respected by all these people. So you're not really a renounced person. He said, these married men and women who are here in this kirtan, they're more renounced than you, because they simply chant Hare Krishna to please Krishna. They're not trying to get anything from Krishna. So he said, but you're still trying to enjoy yourself. Harbol, you're still trying to enjoy yourself. So Lord Chaitanya said, show him the door, take him to the door and put him outside. So the yogi felt bad, and the brahmachari, and he went out, with his head down. And so the kirtan started again, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, right? And then the yogi was sitting outside on the steps, and he was thinking, I really got chastised by Lord Chaitanya, but what he said is really true. I'm not a very renounced person, in spite of all these austerities. I could see that those devotees that were in there chanting with Lord Chaitanya, they're really renounced. They're very peaceful and they're very exceptional people. I cannot understand how I was able to see the kirtan. I'm such a fallen soul. How beautiful Lord Chaitanya was, and how beautiful all those devotees are. It's just overwhelming to see them and to have their mercy on me. So he's sitting there, he started crying, and he was feeling so fallen, that like I'm a pretender, and but yet they blessed me, and I was able to see the kirtan for a couple of minutes. And so all this time the kirtan was going on, right? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Everybody's chanting and dancing. And then suddenly Lord Chaitanya, he stopped the kirtan. And then he asked, where's that yogi? So they said, he's outside. Then the Lord replied, like, didn't you, the devotee said, he's outside. You told us to make him leave. And then he said, yes, I know. He said, now you can bring him in here. Bring him in. Now he's qualified to join the kirtan. So the yogi was putting on this renunciate role, but inside he was actually having so many desires, some desires. So Lord Chaitanya, he did not accept him. But when he just took the humble role, to serve the Lord and started appreciating the devotees, immediately Lord Chaitanya accepted him. So using our body in Krishna service, it's a very easy way, whether we're married or whether we're single. There's even songs about it, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur is one of the great devotees from this area where Lord Chaitanya appeared. He sung this song, Grihe Tako, Vane Tako, Sadahari Bolo Dako. So it means engage yourself always in chanting Hare Krishna. It's such an easy way. The Lord becomes so pleased when you call his name with love. Lord Chaitanya encouraged everyone to take up this system of Yukta Vairagya. Just take everything that we have, everything that we're doing, everything that we see, and try to serve the Lord with love with these things. So serving Krishna, according to our different situations, um, our circumstances might change. We might be married and have a house or a family or a job, or so many different, we all work in different circumstances. But somebody who's in the renounced order, say working in an ashram, like in a temple, then they have to serve in that environment. But whichever environment one's in, if one serves Krishna according to that particular situation, Krishna accepts that service. And our lives become perfect like that. And that's the real source of happiness for all of us. Okay, guys, I'm gonna stop tonight. Thanks so much for giving me the chance to talk. I hope you enjoyed that story. I don't know if anyone has any questions, or if you'd like to say anything else, please feel free. Hare Krishna.
I really enjoy that pastime of the brahmachari that kind of supposedly snuck into the kirtan.
Uh-huh.
I, what to speak of us, you know? I mean, you have somebody here that was surviving off a little cup of milk or water, and still it wasn't enough, because even that can be something so external, as straining and difficult as it is, it's something that will not get you to love God or to see God with the right intention. So that
Yeah,
shows you what
exactly.
great fortune we have. I think that when we the true understanding of relishing the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, or any pastime, is appreciation. You know, all of these pastimes, when we read everything that the acharyas have gone through, what your Guru Maharaj has gone through, what any devotee has done, and when we associate with one another, or when we associate with the literature, or when we associate with the practice in some way, shape, or form, what we should be deriving from that is just pure appreciation for being so lucky to be pulled out of this condition. You know, we got a problem. If you're hungry, offer your food to Krishna. If you're going through some sort of problems with your family, chant Hare Krishna. If you need some money and you're feeling distressed about it, chant Hare Krishna. If you want some knowledge, if you're sick, chant Hare Krishna. You know, if there's a bunch of riots going on in the city, chant Hare Krishna. So it's like, it really pulls us away from a lot of interaction. We become situated on that platform, so we don't have to deal with all of these kind of temporary sufferings. Prabhupada said that, I was listening in class today, we're all prisoners, just different degrees of prisoners. If you go to a prison, some prisoner may be able to do a few more things than the other prisoner, but they're all suffering. They're all in prison. So likewise, somebody may have a big house and a nice dog and a beautiful family. Another person may be on the street, but guess what? If they don't have any sort of knowledge, they're both suffering equally. They're both suffering in the material world. So I really appreciate that pastime. I love hearing about Lord Chaitanya's ecstasies. So thank you so much for sharing that.
That's my pleasure. I really enjoy it too. Anybody else out there tonight?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I really I really appreciate what you said towards the beginning when you were talking about the reason that we have